Welcome to the KDrama Show. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kim.
We're here to unpack your all-time favorite Korean dramas and chat about all the reasons that we find these shows so charming.
And so addictive. And we know you do too, so settle in with some ramyeon and a boba tea while we dive into the KDrama Show with Ashley and Kim. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're recording. Sorry. It's okay. All right, y'all, we are back with GyeongSeong Creature, episode 6 and 7.
Whoop, whoop.
It has been a hot minute.
For us.
Yes, for you it will have been about 5. For us, it's been about 8 months. So,
almost.
Yeah, we are going to do our best.
To jump back in.
We're just going to jump right back in. We really like this show.
Mm-hmm.
It is a bit of a heavier watch, so if, there's some themes in it that if you're not interested in, we have lots of other stuff out there for you to go check out. So go check that out right now. We also have season 3 currently dropping with My Ideas Gangnam Beauty. Fun watch. So if this is not your cup of tea, go check that out.
Yes.
That being said, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with an episode 4 and 5 recap. So episode 4, we confirm that ChaeOk's mother is in fact the creature. Lady Maeda notifies Dr. Ichiro that TaeSang and his team are inside of the hospital, and during her visit, the creature learns to operate the lift inside the facility and starts to navigate the various floors of the hospital, leaving countless bodies in her wake. MyeongJa has been moved to a separate holding area, and Lady Maeda insists that she be kept safe until her baby is born. Why? We don't really know yet. TaeSang and ChaeOk split from Jungwon, and Juntaek is off on his own quest. TaeSang and ChaeOk see the creature for the very first time. And then episode 5, we learn that Juntaek has entered the hospital because one of the prisoners is a comrade that knows the location of 20 kilos of dynamite that used to be used in an assassination attempt against the Japanese military state. TaeSang, ChaeOk, and Juntaek are all taken captive, each with very different outcomes. TaeSang actually greases his palms and has Soma in his pocket because of a promise to buy him means out of the Japanese army. ChaeOk is beaten, but Kato pulls her aside to attempt to feed her some Najin spawn. Delicious. And Juntaek has been injected with something and volunteered the names of his fellow intruders, while his father pays his ransom to release him alive. ChaeOk learns her mother, Choi Song-shim, or Se-shin, was in GyeongSeong at some point and is now determined to find her, much to Taesong's dismay. The two share a moment where they wonder if they will see one another alive again. And with that, we can head into episode 6, Chaos. And this was interesting because this particular episode, every episode leading up to this, we had a title, such and such subtitle. So like episode 5 was Desperation, Between Denial and Truth. Episode 4 was Imprinting, Between Causality and Fate. We dropped the between on this one. And we only have a title of Chaos.
Right before it is Between Monster and Human.
Well, then Netflix failed me.
Yeah, because I went through and I was like, I need to check these subtitles.
I looked twice.
Wow, that's really rude of Netflix.
Maybe I need to learn how to read better.
Well, they also do it very, very quickly.
Yeah, it was a weird one because the start was a little bit different compared to some of the other episodes, I think. Or I just am on crack. I don't know. Anyway, would you like to kick us off?
Okay. So when this episode opens up, we are in winter 1925, and Taesang is a little boy, and we just hear it's his mom saying, "Taesang, don't trust anyone. There isn't anyone in this world who can protect you. You have to fend for yourself." And we just hear him asking, "Mom, where are you going?" And she's placing him inside this part of their home to hide him. And these soldiers burst in and they end up, beating his mom and asking where somebody is. And she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then we suddenly flash forward to a grown Taesang talking, and we just hear him saying how he did his best to keep that promise until she, being ChaeOk, walked into his life. And he was thinking to himself now, maybe I should have thought through making that promise to her, to ChaeOk, about saving as many people as I possibly could. Because this is completely against everything that he was told to do as a young boy. So at this point, prisoners have escaped, and they get cut off by the soldiers. And one of them, tries to stand up to the soldiers and says, "Everybody run," and guns get let loose and effectively kills a good portion of the escaped prisoners. And out of nowhere, TaeSang shows up and saves their lives. And we see him going, "Okay, we need to go this direction." And as he tries to get them to safety, one of the soldiers grabs a gun to stop them. And then we just see nothing. Nobody's moving. And the creature just grabs the soldier, basically giving the prisoners a way out. But it is
it's brutal.
Very gory.
He's like a rag doll. He just gets like tossed to the side. But the prisoners escape, and now it's TaeSang versus the creature. And as it lunges at him, he uses one of the canisters of nitrogen to actually subdue it, which he narrowly avoids its clutches, and filling, the hallway starts to fill with anthrax again. We see that the Najin is still in the cup that Kato had offered ChaeOk, who still has him at gunpoint. And we learn that the Najin actually helps humans to achieve their desire to become the apex predator. Kato reveals to ChaeOk that Seishin is this creature. Juntaek's father approaches Commissioner Ichikawa, seeking his help in freeing his son. And it's not until he name drops MyeongJa that Ichikawa's attention is actually engaged in this, and then he's like, okay. He tries not to show his hand, but it's obvious that he's very invested in finding this woman, and everybody knows why.
So as he leaves, Master Kwon, we actually see that Mr. Gu and Miss NaWol are standing outside waiting. And they're just trying to basically gauge, is this going to be a doable thing? Are we going to be able to get anybody out of this facility now? And Miss NaWol and Mr. Gu, they begin to walk back to House of Golden Treasure. And Mr. Gu asks her, do you trust the commissioner? Do you trust Master Kwon? And she goes, I trust no one. Not the people I work with. I don't even trust myself. And Mr. Gu kind of just is like, why would you even say something like that? And we hear her go, have you ever had anyone rip your fingernails from your fingers or burn your skin? Have you been electrocuted? And he just goes, no, it sounds horrible. And she continues and asks him, do you know what happens when someone forces chili powder and water up a person's nose while they hang upside down? And he's like, Mr. Gu is just in a state of shock. Like, why would you even come up with these types of scenarios? And he tells her no, and she says, when that happens, you begin to forget that you're a human, and if they tell you to jump, you will, and you'll do whatever they tell you. Because when you're being tortured, nothing matters, not your family, not your friends. If you ever find yourself in that situation, don't be a hero. It's just going to make things worse for you. Instead, tell them everything. If you ever end up in that situation, just know if you betray us, I won't resent you. Just know that. And we actually see this flashback of Mrs. NaWol being thrown out of a door, and she has just gone through some severe torture. So as she's asking these questions to Mr. Gu, she has experienced this firsthand. But as she's been thrown out, in this memory of hers, this young boy runs to her side and gives her a roasted sweet potato and goes, hey, have you seen my mom? Her name's Shim Sundok. Have you seen her? And she stops mid-bite and just goes, no, I don't. And he gives her some water. And he goes, okay, well, you should go home because it's cold. And he goes back to sitting against the wall. And it is young TaeSang. Present day, Mrs. NaWol is again just reliving this and decides it's time to go home.
This is so heartbreaking, though. And leading up to that scene, you're kind of like, obviously, she's the one who betrayed his mother. And then at this point, I was like, Mr. Gu is going to have to face the music with his conviction and decide if he can actually stay true to his word and be loyal to his friends. But NaWol begins to weep like in the past, and you're just like, oh. But I had to pause and consider, like, what would I do in this situation? You know what I mean? And I mean, for your child, you would die every single time, but to leave them behind like that would be so difficult. TaeSang and the prisoners are arguing about whether they should have stayed put, and TaeSang was very angry that they moved without his help. The prisoners had argued that he has always been selfish, never even daring to choose a side while his people burned at the hands of the Japanese. TaeSang argues that clear allegiances don't always lead to right decisions, and they had no plan and no escape route. These people's deaths were their own faults, and you didn't even have the courage to die, so don't take away from the sacrifices of those who have died. Juntaek said you were a man of conviction, and he must have been mistaken. And then he turns his back on that man as he starts to weep.
Oh. That was also a very intense
very
scene.
Poignant, because they've spent this whole time saying you have no conviction, you won't stand with your own people. And then when
You're
it
just in
comes
it for the money,
when it comes down to the wire, they make decisions based out of fear for their own protection, while he has been making decisions for the greater good of all of these people while they're in this hospital.
Well, and even just to point out of, you don't have an escape plan. You have no idea where you're at.
Yeah.
That's why I told you to wait.
Right.
I know where we're going. I am the only one who can get us out of this mess, because again, I have the resources.
Right.
You've been locked in here for who knows how long.
Meanwhile, Juntaek has provided pages of intel to the guard and now proceeds to provide intel on the entire People's Resistance and their organizational chart. Speaking of men of conviction. I mean, again,
he's also been injected with something. And we're assuming that it's some form of
pain
or
poison,
just like a
true serum. I don't know.
Serum, yeah, if that actually even is a thing. But like, clearly whatever it is, he can't even control if he wanted to.
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
Very, very, like, you just see the pain on his face of like, I don't want to be doing this.
He wasn't even in there that long.
No.
I was like, dude, they broke you so fast.
Buddy.
Yeah.
Yes. But Jungwon, Taeok's dad, has found TaeSang and everybody else. And there's a brief moment of just relief that they're both still alive. And he goes, where's my daughter? And TaeSang's like, I'm so sorry. Like, there was news that your wife had been here, and she said she had to go find out. And like, I wish I would have stayed. And Jungwon just kind of like lets him have that moment of be like, no, it's okay. I know my daughter. You couldn't have stopped her even if you wanted to. I know you're just doing your part. That means that these people get to live. So let's get them out of here. Yeah. We need to find a place for them to go. And TaeSang makes the plan that he is now going to find ChaeOk and bring her back so that they can all escape together. As the prisoners and everybody is running through with Jungwon, he actually stops the man that TaeSang has just reamed against the wall and said, he told me to give this to you, and gives him a gun for, you're supposed to watch the rear now. So showing that, like, I'm giving you that chance. Prove that you are that man of conviction.
Right.
Which I felt was a very great moment of just showing, like, that, yeah, TaeSang's mad because you really messed up, but that doesn't mean he's just going to take away your chance to still try and help.
This would be the hour to prove yourself worthy of that opinion. Right. Yeah, so. ChaeOk is still discussing the creature with Kato. He insists that it is an evolutionary advancement, and he suggests that she try the Najin as well, since Seishin might recognize her daughter at that point. TaeSang instructs Jungwon to take the prisoners to an empty ward, which is what you were talking about, to hide for a few hours while he got to recover ChaeOk, and TaeSang is now in the ventilation system. Soma is being punished and beaten by Dr. Ichiro for all of the prisoners escaping, and he receives word that Commissioner Ichikawa has arrived to investigate the missing woman, MyeongJa. He threatens Soma, saying that if any of the Chosun prisoners escape, he will imprison his wife and children in their stead and perform his dissections on them. Fun.
Ah.
ChaeOk is now in uniform, holding Kato at gunpoint as they roam the hallways to find the creature. And he says, "There's only one way to kill Seishin. You burn it." Kato has cleverly outed ChaeOk as his captor, and she is knocked unconscious with a gun from behind. Mr. Shiro has sent word to Lady Maeda concerning the investigation happening at GyeongSeong Hospital. She tries to reach her husband, who is currently indisposed, but we see her briefly lose her composure, which is very uncharacteristic for her.
Yes.
As she learns that Akiko is about to be rescued, who is also MyeongJa.
Yes. There's a lot of name flip-flopping in here.
There is, yeah, because of the Korean name and the Japanese.
And the Japanese.
Yeah.
We then actually see Mrs. NaWol walk into a tailor shop with a note. And then we watch this whole process of it be delivered to a rickshaw driver. And then it's delivered to Youngchun at the Moonlight Bar, who then delivers it to Mr. Wong. And then he burns that note. So clearly there's a plan being put in place.
And we've seen this happen once before.
Mm-hmm. So this is not an uncommon system for them to use.
Mm-hmm.
We see that MyeongJa is in her cell and she's told to get up. And we then watch the gates to Onsong, to the hospital, open up, and the police have entered, and they are going, okay, we have to do some investigating here. And Ichiro is like, you can't come in. There is an infectious disease. You can't be here. And Ichikawa goes, look, don't make me look weak in front of my men. Just let me pretend at the very least. So that, at least I can say that I've done my job and I've looked everywhere I need to look.
Mm-hmm.
As he's being taken to one of Ichiro's offices, TaeSang is looking through those same cells where MyeongJa just was, and is stopped by a soldier asking him where he took the woman. TaeSang ends up taking the gun from that soldier and putting him in the cell.
You done messed up, Aaron.
Yes. You are up against a man on a mission here.
Probably would have done him some favors if you just killed him, because the people in charge are not going to be happy with him.
No, they are not.
ChaeOk is cuffed on the ground in what appears to be one of the lower containment cells for the creature. Behind her are barricades with men in gas masks and guns aimed in her direction. She has clearly become bait for the creature. Mm-hmm. The men have cornered the creature into the elevator shaft using nitrogen. TaeSang, he finds the unclothed guard in Kato's office, the one that ChaeOk had stolen his uniform from, but not before he observes the cup sitting on the table. We don't know if he partakes of the cup, but it still contains the Najin. He hears the creature and sneaks to the upper-level observation deck above the containment area where Kato and his men are watching ChaeOk below. Jungwon is one of the guards on the upper level and asks about the woman to fill in TaeSang as to what's happening. That was so clever.
Yeah, and you can't help but just be like, good job.
I like you.
You got this.
please make it out.
Right.
As the creature approaches, ChaeOk is watching in fear, sorrow, and hope that her mother is still somewhere inside of this abomination. Kato is rooting for Seishin to kill ChaeOk, but in her final moments, ChaeOk screams, "Omoni," and the creature takes pause. ChaeOk begins to talk to Seishin, asking if it's really her, and it seems that Seishin is being awoken from within. She has memories returning to her of her daughter as a child 10 years ago, and we get to see the moment that Seishin bows her head to her daughter so that ChaeOk can place the talisman on her neck. And it crossfades with the image of the creature looking down at ChaeOk mid-attack. Kato then instructs the guards to fire upon the creature who moves ChaeOk so that she can protect her with her body. And Seishin's tentacles grow extra appendages which resemble tree roots, which I thought this was so incredibly poetic because this creature is a symbol of death. And in this moment is imitating something we would associate with life in order to protect her daughter. So it's kind of like out of this great tragedy is born this ability to show great love. This scene killed me. So when we first started watching this, I feel like even though I had a bond with my daughter, I did not necessarily have a relationship with her because she was not old enough to really have a personality yet. And now it's like I have a relationship with my daughter. We have conversations and things that we talk about, and I was just like, oh my god.
That is me.
I ugly cried.
Yeah.
I did not have this response the first time I watched it, but this time rewatching it again, I was like,
Weeping.
Yeah.
Well, and you see the mother's love
Mm-hmm.
of, no, I will protect my child. You will not come near my child.
Yeah.
So yes, the Yas has been released, and Station takes out soldiers. Like, she is, you could say Mama Bear, but Mama Creature. Mama Creature. And ChaeOk is just watching. She is in despair at this moment because she knows what is happening to her mom. She's watching it and realizing this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
TaeSang actually shows up behind her and pulls her away. And above, Kato's, screaming at his men to cease fire because they realize that ChaeOk is no longer down there. And TaeSang has pulled her into the hall, and she is screaming, "Let me go, let me go." And he's like, "No, you need to get a grip. I need you to pull it together." And she just falls into him and just is sobbing, going, "No, that's my mom. The creature is my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And, help me. Because I don't know what to do at this point."
All you can do is console her with the KDrama shoulder pat.
Yeah. Well, what else are you supposed to do? Of oh, hey, yeah, we all want to kill this thing because it's coming after us, but
Now it's a person.
Yep. It now is related to somebody that I care about.
Yeah.
So this is great. So they actually hide out in the vents, and they're both kind of just coming to grips, and he tells her, "I'm not going to ask if you're okay because I know you're not, but I want you to be okay," and gives her a caramel, which for
Classic
us,
Park Seo-joon.
well, for us is just a callback to season 1 of our show, watching What's Wrong with Secretary Kim and the caramel. So we have a special connection with that little moment there.
I just wrote, I texted Ashley Park Seo-joon with the caramels. Apparently, when in a traumatic situation, you hand your crush a caramel, and then you can get married somewhere down the road as you reflect on your shared trauma.
Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh. But to back up just a little bit, after they capture Station and she's contained and the air starts to fill with anthrax, Kato actually notes that the maternal instinct had conquered the Najin in the end, as Station withstood their attacks with a new level of strength. I just thought that was important to note because for evolving, beyond humanity, and then the humanity is what makes her more powerful in the end. Yeah.
Just a reminder for everyone, there's multiple scenes going on every
simultaneously.
45 seconds.
Yeah.
So there's going
We
to
skip
be,
around a bit.
Gotta finish a thought, go back, finish out the next story.
I love that he says, though, "I won't ask if you're okay because I know that you're not. But still, I hope you'll feel better." And then he goes on to tell her that his mother's last words to him were to survive no matter what. And then he asks her to escape with him, then take time to formulate a plan together. And then that kind of snaps her out of it just enough to be like, "Can I have another caramel?" And he hands her another one, which she accepts, and then she just starts to cry.
All over again.
Little sugar does wonders for a person.
It really can. So Duntaek is defeated at this point, and he's laying against the bars yet again as the soldier picks up another stack of papers. And then they untie him, and he's not doing so hot. But they place a sack over his head, and let's see, hold on. Where do I even have my... Oh, they just place a sack over his head. And at this same moment, Mr. Gu has come in with the police, and he has backed up his truck and parks it and gets out. But he is stopped by a soldier who's telling him, "You are not allowed to park there." And he manages to distract him with a bottle of champagne, being like, "Hey, let's go have a drink." At the same time, Haneda is getting reports of what has happened and learns that some of the men who have been, learns that there's been men who were captured, stripped of their uniforms, and then locked up. And then we find our young Joseon soldier walk into a room with all of the prisoners and 2 others. And we learn that it is actually ChaeOk and TaeSang who have also put on the uniform. And Jungwon is obviously very, very relieved to find that his daughter is alive and in one piece. And the door opens yet again, and it is Officer Soma and MyeongJa, and he is begging them to let him escape as well.
Yeah, it's hard to have a show of loyalty when the people there are saying that things out of your control will result in the death of your family.
And you have to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, get me out.
Yeah, not just the death, but the torture. So, we are shown preparations for a party in BonJeong district near House of Golden Treasure. Everything is to commence at 10 o'clock sharp with a 10-minute window for escape, and Haneda is in the hospital ward, giving orders to seal off all the entrances as the troops ready themselves for one final push toward freedom. Music begins to flood the streets, and BonJeong comes to life at the call and beck of Na Young-chun, who is the bar owner. And that is the end of episode 6. Whew. Now we have episode 7, which is called Chase Between Us and Them.
Whew. The opening of this one was a lot.
Yes, it was. I felt like it was less than the one before that.
A lot in a different way.
I don't do well with people hurting other people in a realistic sense. So this show is really hard for me to rewatch. And then I told Ashley, I was like, of course, the scene we go back to rewatch, the very first thing is, a mother being caned to protect her son.
Her child. This is great.
Awful, as her child has to listen. Anyway, episode 7. So we open with ChaeOk, who is examining the creature's prison, which is now littered with the bodies of all of the soldiers that were in there, and she quietly calls for her mother, but she sees a bloodied TaeSang approach. He collapses onto her shoulder as she asks what's wrong with him, and he asks her for help when ChaeOk realizes that the creature is now TaeSang. She attempts to move away, but it's too late. She's impaled, and TaeSang has completed his transformation. It was eerie.
It freaked me out.
That was nightmare fodder.
Yeah.
That was not fun.
It was just the terror on her face.
Well, and the way that they did half creature, half TaeSang was very unsettling. It was well done. It was convincing. But alas, 'twas all a dream. ChaeOk is awoken in clean clothing in a white bedroom when she hears her name is being called. She recalls the night before during their escape, and we realize that TaeSang has not found his freedom, but rather is lying unconscious atop a pile of bones. And when I say pile, I mean like a 15-foot tall pile.
Yeah, it is
unsettling.
Very, 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 unsettling. There's not a better word for it. So we cut to 16 hours earlier. TaeSang is telling everyone that they have 10 minutes to get out of the hospital, and if they don't get out in time, the truck will leave. So everyone is ripping the sheets that are in the room, tying a rope, and simultaneously, Mrs. NaWol is pulling out a very fancy vase from a safe. Young-chun has started the music in the street, but we see the sheet rope has been thrown out the window, and Mr. Gu is sharing champagne with that soldier off in the corner, and he's keeping an eye on the window. And we see that everybody is starting to make their way out. Go down the rope, get into the back of the truck. And we see Haneda actually walk past this wing and say, has anybody checked this? And they say, yeah, 3 men went in. And he goes, well, then why are the lights off? So then we also have ChaeOk and TaeSang going, okay, are there soldiers coming? Are we going to be okay? Do we need to get everything? Do we need to go faster? And TaeSang actually gets upset with her and is asking her why she's not in line. And she tells him, I'm going to do things my own way. And he goes, I understand that, but this time you need to do it my way. I need you to get on that truck. I will feel better that way. And I just love her kind of out there question of, are you developing feelings for me? But if you're not, then you don't need to have any concerns about this. Don't worry about me. then I love that she just smirks and walks to go check for soldiers.
Well, and then to interrupt this moment, in walks a Japanese soldier. And we hear a gunshot ring out through the hospital, which is alerting everyone to the trouble. And as the prisoners start to rush, ChaeOk, TaeSang, and Jungwon prepare to make their final stand. But Jungwon is a bit incapacitated because he was the one who shot the Japanese soldier, and he is kind of panicking because he realizes that this is
what this means now.
This is death. TaeSang tries one last time to push ChaeOk out the door, but she refuses once again, chastising him for basically painting her in a light that she doesn't want to be seen in, which is weak and needing help. But it's really not about that. It's about his focus being on these soldiers, but he can't because she's standing right next to him in danger. But barricade in place, the trio await the arrival of the Japanese soldiers with solemn resolve. Shots begin to ring out as they take fire, and the barricade begins to fail, which does not go unnoticed by Commissioner Ichikawa, the bullets and the noise and the commotion, who questions Dr. Ichiro about this. So the commissioner is informed that his wife is actually a beneficiary of the hospital, and he should basically butt out, even if he has a personal interest in exposing Dr. Ichiro's antics. The Japanese soldiers start to take fire, and not a single bullet misses, but TaeSang has been grazed. We look over, and Jungwon has been fatally wounded with a shot to the abdomen as ChaeOk begs him to think of his mother's longing to see him again. He places his medallion in ChaeOk's hand, telling her his name and address so that she can inform his mother of his passing. And he slips away just moments later. ChaeOk says he didn't deserve this, neither did my mother, nor did all those people who were kept underground in that tunnel. But why? Just why? ChaeOk asks TaeSang what he hopes for beyond the walls of the hospital, and he responds by saying, I don't know about hope, but I plan to survive as long as I can, to give them an endless, irritating headache, to make their lives uncomfortable, and to be a living reminder of the things they did to us. I will never make it easy for them to kill me. The prisoners have all escaped, and the pair make their plan to retreat. This is a heavy scene.
Oh.
It's sad because it feels like you see these characters have this show of bravery, and then they are just killed without any kind of like their death is just so simple. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so quick. There's no
fanfare.
Yeah.
No
and that's just the reality of
war
this time. Yeah. So it almost hits harder in a way when they don't linger on it, because you see the longing to be able to sit there and mourn, but you're like, we got to get out of here alive.
We will die if we don't move.
And it'll be all for naught if we don't get out of here. Like what he sacrificed, what he gave in order for us to make it out of here.
Right. So everyone has gotten out, and In-hyuk has told them, okay, it's time for you to go out as well. At the same moment, Haneda is telling his men it is time to get in there and it's time to kill everyone. ChaeOk goes out the window, and TaeSang grabs her hand, and she tells him, I'll see you soon, as he nods and makes sure that she gets down the wall. TaeSang then tells In-hyuk, one of us has to stay so that we can draw away the attention of the soldiers. Go, and I will stay. In-hyuk makes it down the rope, and we see that the rope gets cut and the window shuts, and ChaeOk begins to panic, realizing that TaeSang's not coming down, and is trying to fight off In-hyuk and her dad, because she needs to she's not understanding why he's the one who decided to stay, and she is told, we have to leave now, and you have to be quiet, or we are all going to die, and it'll be your fault.
Well, because she calls out to him, or she yells no, basically, and it's like, dude, you just went through all this trouble, and now you're gonna start screaming about where you are. Shut up.
You can't do this.
Get your sleep deprived. Shush. Anyway.
But at this same moment, another soldier has come up to Haneda and is telling him that Ichiro's order is to capture all of the prisoners alive. And Haneda rebels against this order and says, no, my direct order is to kill everyone. I will explain it to Ichiro myself.
Mm-hmm.
He's a scary dude.
Yes, a little bit. He's a little bit unhinged.
I'd say more than a little.
But obviously most of these individuals that are in charge are
Unhinged.
not really of the most healthy mindsets.
Not even a little bit.
I've really liked the significance of this little interaction here, though, or this little scene where ChaeOk is watching for TaeSang. She kind of momentarily loses focus and is basically really willing, like we said, to risk everyone and everything for TaeSang, but she's quickly brought back to earth. But we see TaeSang turn on his conviction to survive in order to keep ChaeOk alive. So it's kind of like this moment was very poetic in a way. Whew, in a way that in the face of great evil, love is still finding a way. In the face of great evil, love is still finding a way. Sorry, but go ahead. Unless I'm supposed to go ahead.
Oh, go for it, girl.
Okay, so the soldiers move in, firing at the now lone TaeSang. His gun jams, and he throws a smoke bomb as cover. A window comes crashing down onto him as the soldiers close in, and he starts to kind of actually look defeated for the first time. Mr. Gu escapes with the police envoy, and TaeSang has made his way into the ventilation system. But the vents start to fill with soldiers, cornering TaeSang. He missteps, falling down a long shaft onto the pile of bones that we saw from the beginning of the episode. NaWol is now having the vase appraised, and a very pleased-looking buyer makes a phone call. And across town, a military truck pulls up and dumps a very fragile-looking Juntaek into the street, begging for his life in a blind frenzy. NaWol is sitting in a rickshaw and nods at Juntaek's father to show that their transaction is complete. MyeongJa is released from the police truck that Mr. Gu is driving to Commissioner Ichikawa. He very coldly welcomes her back to the outside world. This was such a strange reunion to me. I get that he didn't want to show any emotion in front of his subordinates.
But you employed an entire
rebellion
operation to get her back.
Yeah. It was just a very strange
She's beyond thrilled to see him. I knew you would save me.
She's in love.
And his only response is, you need to take a bath.
Yeah. Get in the car. Let's talk after you've had a bath. Okay.
Wow, bro.
Cool. They were just about to harvest your child from this woman. Okay. Cool. Whatevs, girl. You need some therapy.
Choose better, please.
Yeah.
So the soldier that TaeSang had locked in the cell is begging for forgiveness from Ichiro because by the time he had gotten there, the woman was already gone. This is where we learn that Soma was the one who got MyeongJa out, that we already know from previous scenes. But then we cut to Kato, and he is looking at an empty cup, and his entire focus is now on who drank this cup, who was in here, and Ichiro is going, dude, this doesn't matter right now. Do you not realize what's going on? We lost all of the prisoners, everybody that we've experimented on. We don't have anything anymore, and you're concerned about who drank out of this cup.
Yeah, you know that giant thing that runs around the hallways right now? That's kind of the concern, friend.
Both of you. That should be where your concern is. But the soldier that ChaeOk had taken his uniform, he is asked, who came in here? And we learned that there were 4 people who had come through. It was ChaeOk, TaeSang, Soma, and MyeongJa. And at this moment, Kato's going, it's one of these 4 unlucky people who drank that and is now infected.
Interesting cut to TaeSang, who finally wakes up, and Haneda is holding him at gunpoint. And we pan out to the outside of the room, and we hear 4 gunshots ring out. But ChaeOk realizes that Commissioner Ichikawa had no plans to allow the prisoners to escape, and the second truck is trying to run them off the road. Mr. Gu loses them in a tunnel, and as they attempt to catch back up with him, they're stopped by a street filled with citizens dancing. Children eating street food, men firing cannons. Mr. Gu is slowly making his way through the streets when we see the bar owner Youngchun and the rickshaw shop owner nod to one another. The truck is blocked by rickshaws when they finally intercept the prisoner's truck. Mr. Gu is ordered out of the truck, but there is no one else inside. We see the way that the plan was carried out as all the prisoners are changed into new clothing and are carried by rickshaw drivers away from the city to escape the military police. The man who doubted Master Jang TaeSang in the hospital asks if this was all part of his plan, and NaWol simply states that if you want anything in BonJeong, you must go through the House of Golden Treasure.
He has a hand in helping out every time.
Mm-hmm.
At this moment, Mr. Gu has been arrested for basically seeming suspicious of, there were more people in your truck. And the police are told, arrest anyone who looks suspicious, and they begin beating everyone, destroying everything and taking people away. And we actually see the rickshaws are pulling all of the prisoners to safety, and Jungwon and ChaeOk are passing underneath some of the trees that are having their cherry blossoms fall. And she's remembering the timeline and wondering if TaeSang is still alive.
I felt like the fact that they were just sitting there in silence was so deafening. Just the calm after the hurricane, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where neither of them
knew if they were going to make it out.
Want to acknowledge what they had just witnessed. And I wonder how often, how routine this was for them because of the places they had infiltrated in the past trying to find her mother.
Mm-hmm.
But this just felt like a whole different level
of crazy and horrific.
And part of it is that the stakes are upped because she has someone that she loves that's still back in the building. That
purposely stayed, not just
which
disappeared.
Is exactly why she was fighting, not wanting him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We cut to Lady Maeda, who is being informed that her husband is working very late tonight and he won't be returning home. He's with MyeongJa. But we just see this is the Maeda that we have seen the whole time. A very, very scorned woman. But now we know that she's a very conniving, scorned woman.
Oh yeah, this is all born out of jealousy, which is freaky. Don't piss off rich people.
Yeah,
she's a
very unhealthy way of dealing with this. But we actually see that Lady Maeda is now dealing with Ichiro, and he is apologizing. I failed and I'm so sorry. And she tells him that he had messed up despite all the chances and favors that she had given to him, and he's going to resign now. He begs, for another chance because one experiment did work, and he gives her the file on Seishin. And she's flipping through, and she goes, I knew her, but years ago, she had asked Ichiro to take care of her. So
why is she now this thing?
Yeah. Also, why are you just giving people to this guy?
Yeah.
What did she do? Kato is now told that they have subdued the creature, but he is still more interested in who drank the water.
I mean, honestly, same.
Yeah. I mean, okay, now that the creature is taken care of, I feel like that's something you can care about now.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, bro, there was a bigger thing going on. We see that Ichikawa and MyeongJa are actually together.
That was still a grody scene. The way he looked at her was like she was an object.
Mm-hmm. He's
not a good guy.
He's clearly terrible.
He's not a good guy.
But Soma is getting his family on a train. They are leaving. ChaeOk is looking at a house, and TaeSang is laying on the ground. We see TaeSang get up and make his way down the hall, leaving bloody handprints all down the walls. And then we see the woman who had asked House of Golden Treasure to look for her son find that her sewing machine has been returned, and it has her son's name tag attached to it. And she just begins to weep because she knows that her son is dead.
but she's given closure.
Yes.
And honestly, that is such a huge thing.
And that hasn't hardly happened in this show.
Yeah.
Like, at all.
Yeah. People disappear right and left in this place, and
You
never hear why or what, or if they're dead, or, giant tentacled creatures roaming around. The way that they showed each of the 4 people as Kato is kind of pondering who the Najin might have infected was so clever. Because you see Akiko right next to Ichikawa, and then you see, what is it, Sato? Soma. I don't know why I typed Sato. Soma boarding the train with his family, and you're like, either one of those could end in a massacre. And then you see ChaeOk out in the streets again.
Could be a massacre.
And then you see TaeSang, who, for all intents and purposes, should have lost that fight. And you're like, maybe it was more than luck. You know what I mean? So it was cleverly done in such a way that it could literally be any of them. I just thought it was a great way to hold the suspense for that episode.
Well, we end on MyeongJa's face, and the Najin is making its way to the brain.
I didn't watch enough.
That is the end of the episode.
I forgot about that. Snap! I do remember that. And I think I had that problem the first time I watched through, where you were like, you need to watch past the initial credits or something like that.
Yeah, just you have to watch all the way.
Oh my gosh.
True.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
Oh.
Anyway.
Okay, well, that was episode 7.
Episode 7. I don't remember how we end these.
I don't either. I don't feel like we do Character of the Hour.
No, we didn't do any of that. That was all developed in season 3 or season 2.
Yeah, because also, how could you win this show?
No. It would be ChaeOk or Jungwon or... I mean, I guess you kind of could. You kind of could, but it would be a lot harder.
So hard.
Yeah.
There's so much.
There's too much juggling.
Simultaneous scenes that when you go back and watch it, you will see that we didn't actually stick to the proper
ordering,
but we wanted to finish a thought. There's a lot of scrolling up and down in my notes.
Yeah, because you and I take notes differently too. I have a lot of appreciation for this show, going back and watching it. I feel like it's such a serious tone compared to the other show that we're going through right now.
Well, any of the shows that we've talked about even.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the heavier ones, and a lot of that is because it's rooted in reality to some extent. Just the Japanese occupation of the Korean people is hard to kind of fathom. We here in America, thank God, do not experience war to that extent in modern day. That can change at any moment, but it's just not something that we can comprehend in our state of comfort.
Right.
And so trying to come to terms with the fact that some of these things truly did happen and far worse,
just the impact that it makes.
It adds a lot of weight to some of the things that you see. So it's just a hard watch in that regard. Episode 8 is definitely a really tough one. So please proceed with caution. If you decide to watch that episode, I will probably be fast forwarding through some parts because I'm a very sensitive human.
It gets pretty intense.
It does get a little intense. So yeah, just proceed with caution. But we will see you with episodes 8 and 9, I guess. Like what you're hearing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new episodes. We'd love to connect with you on our Instagram at the KDrama Show. For more behind-the-scenes content, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Links are in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on the KDrama Show with Ashley and Kim, and we'll see you next time.